Hi everyone. How are we doing tonight, this afternoon? Time change is weird, so we might be a little all over the place here, but it is late afternoon, almost early evening where I am. So I am about to ready to eat dinner. I did drink some coffee and I had my favorite snack this afternoon. I love apples dipped in peanut butter, but I have a kid who is deathly allergic to peanuts. So we've switched to almond butter, but almond butter is not good by itself. So I do almond butter mixed with vanilla yogurt, and it is divine. If you need to try it, you need to try it. It is absolutely delicious. If I do say so myself, let me see. I don't know if I like that better. We'll see. I might change it up in a minute. I see some wonderful people on Instagram here. I'm live on YouTube and Instagram. I'm in a different location. We moved my treadmill into our room where I was live streaming last time, and it's in my live streaming corner. So it would not be the good ambiance. So I'm decorating my wall here, and then I hung this up today. It's been in like sitting behind my desk here for I don't know months at this point, possibly years. It's been a while. I've been meaning to like make this wall pretty, and I hung it up crooked, so I didn't get to finish anything. So you get this lovely art piece in the background, and that's all I got. I need to add some stuff too. So I didn't realize it's like coming out of my head, so you're not going to be able to unsee that, and I am so sorry. But that's where we are today. Yes, it is awesome. The almond butter, Greek. I use Greek vanilla yogurt specifically because I like the texture better, and it's more protein. And I'm old, so I need to eat more protein. No, something like that. Healthy, whatever. On Instagram, I asked, or everywhere, I asked what your favorite book to movie or TV adaptation is, and if you liked the book or the movie, or like the movie more than the book, some sort of form of that question there. And Mandy says, my favorite is the 1995 Pride and Prejudice. I love that one. And granted, let me caveat, I love both the 2005 and the 1995. I saw the 2005 first. I was in high school. My best friend Lauren at the time, we grew up together, loved Harry Potter, like we loved reading. And I don't know if you're watching this, Lauren, but you are. Shout out to you. But we watched the 2005 Pride and Prejudice together, and we've been obsessed ever since. So I greatly love that one. But when I was in college, I found out about the 1995 version, and I am just like, why did I not watch that earlier? I love it. I love the book Pride and Prejudice. I like how the 1995 version seems to be more closely aligned to the book that I remember. I also think the acting is great in both of them, but the acting of the mother, Mrs. Bennet, in the 1995 version is like peak what she should have been, in my opinion. But I couldn't choose which one I like over the other one personally, because they're both fantastic. I am excited for this new one. I want to see it because I love any rendition of Pride and Prejudice, but I'm not sold on it yet, but I will probably still watch it. My answer is Dia, are Lord of the Rings specifically. I think Lord of the Rings, the movies are much better. I haven't finished reading the whole Lord of the Rings series. I've read The Hobbit and I've read Fellowship. I have thoughts. I actually reference these Lord of the Rings specifically in my least favorite part of Fellowship in book 3, so that'll be a fun nugget to get to when you get to that in book 3. I think just the movies are just so good. Peter Jackson's versions. I enjoyed the Hobbit movies. I think they brought things out that the book lacked. I just don't like how I was like 3 movies. I have mixed feelings about the Hobbit movies, I guess, but I still love them and I still watch them. I had a kid, I had not read The Hobbit at the time, and I was teaching 6th and 7th grade that year. And I had a kid, it was the day that the 3rd movie came out, the 3rd Hobbit came out, and a kid ruined the ending for me. And I've never forgiven him, poor child. I love The Maze Runner. I read the first book. I might have read the second book. I loved the first book. I loved the movies. I did not expect some of the elements in the Maze Runner because I didn't know anything about it going into it, but I loved Maze Runner. But I need to finish the series. I have not finished the series of the books or movies, but that's me. Let's see who else. I'm sorry, I'm going to butcher Kofed. I'm going to call you Kofed. What they said, yes. But I also like the whole Hunger Games series. Still haven't seen Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes. I Hunger Games, the books are some of my favorite books of all time. Movies, I thought did a really good job. I have my critiques of them. I always have critiques of books and movies, but I have not seen Ballad either. It wasn't my favorite book though. Sunrise on the Reaping, I am so stinking excited for. And I think that's all the comments over on Instagram here and YouTube. But yeah, Sunrise on the Reaping has been one of my favorite reads this year. The other read is a historical romance book, kind of like with time travel by Gabrielle Meyer. That series, the Timeless series, has been fantastic. I discovered it this year because we read the first one for book club, and oh my stars. The fifth book came out relatively recently. I read it and it was just amazing. So that was my other 5-star read this year. That was just my favorite, 100%. And I think the sixth book comes out really soon. And that series, and I'm super excited about the sixth book. I've already pre-ordered it because it was great. And the audiobook narrator is fantastic for the series, by the way. Let's see here. I do love the Percy Jackson movies with Logan Lerman. I have not seen them. I also have not read Percy Jackson. My cousin, who is about 10 years younger than me, she loves the Percy Jackson books. And I keep telling her, I was like, oh, I want to read them because they're very popular and I think I would like them. But I haven't. And so I also know that a lot of people don't like the Percy Jackson movies, but I have no like frame of reference for them. But I want to watch them. I want to read them as well. Okie dokie. I think I'm gonna go ahead and start because we do have some questions to get to today. Just some housekeeping stuff. If you are part of my Discord, I have your questions. You submitted them already, so I have them on my little screen here to answer like I did last time. But if you're on Instagram or you're on YouTube, then I can answer your questions probably at the end. Just put like a green check mark because I'm live streaming to both YouTube and Instagram. Instagram does not have the little question box like it usually does, even though I am live on Instagram. So keep that in mind. Just drop a little question, or what's that? Check mark? Sorry. If I say question mark, my brain is not on. I'm really tired. But yeah, I'm excited to get started. And we have some really good questions today. I was putting them together. I was like, oh, I can't wait to answer that one. Let's see. Oh yeah, okay, so that's good to know. Like I have only heard good things about Percy Jackson. And I have the first one. I found it at a cute little bookstore close to where I live, and I was like, perfect, I'll grab it and start reading it. And I just haven't read it yet. I'm a very big mood reader, and that is one of my many flaws. So because I was like, if I'm not in the mood, I can't read it, but I do want to read it. Okie dokie, here we go. Let's go. If you are new here, if you don't know who I am, I'm Allie Ernest. I wrote this book series, Cities of Smoke and Starlight. It's basically Treasure Planet meets Rogue One meets Anastasia. It's a lot like Divine Rivals, the world of Divine Rivals, which is a really great, I would say it's YA. I would say definitely it's upper YA. There is a vague open door scene at the end, so just heads up there. But Divine Rivals is really good. A lot of the same world building elements I find in my book as well. So I was really excited when that came out because I can use it as a comp title. Because like, oh, you see this world? My book is kind of like this world. So that was really awesome. I'm glad that science fantasy is kind of gaining a little bit of ground here. So it's easier to explain my book. This is the second book in the series, Realms of Wrath and Ruin, and the third book will be coming out at the end of September, which is less than a month away, which is mind-blowing to me. And if you've been following my saga on Instagram or in my newsletter, you know how fun book 3 is going at this moment, but I can talk about that later if you have questions. But anyway, let's go ahead and answer some read along questions. Again, if you have more questions during the live, just put a green check mark. On YouTube, I should be able to see it pretty easily because there's not as many people over there, but and I'm able to access it a little easier than Instagram here. So anyway, I hope that helped slightly. I'm gonna call that good. Okie dokie, here we go. How did you come up with the YALVs? What was your inspiration? I have a long and involved answer. I'm not going to go into the long and involved answer because I think I went kind of into that last time, just the basis of it. But basically, I had the idea that there are different Earth-like planets in the universe, and something happened on each of the planets. Earth, the sun exploded. The sun, they miscalculated how long the sun was going to take to explode and become like a black hole. And they were off by a long time. And so the people of Earth had to evolve and kind of adapt to it. So they hid underground for a while, and then they figured out how to get off world, and they ended up out in Yalvara. So something kind of similar happened on each of the Cyril planet, the home planet, and the the Rubicons home planet, and they ended up on Yalvara, but the Yalvs were originally there. So I was kind of basing them on like an ancient Roman kind of vibe. Like I wanted them to feel like enlightened. They wear the togas, for example, and they have this very structured way of life. I also wanted to bring in other kind of fantasy-esque elements that weren't there because it was more of a sci-fi. So I wanted them to kind of be like vampires. So in the first book, I think Case describes them as vampires because they have pointed teeth, eye teeth or whatever, and they have like really pale skin and dark hair. And so I wanted them to kind of be vampire inspired, but that was the only thing about them that was vampire inspired. I really wanted them to feel like ancient Roman vampires, I guess I will put it that way. So that was kind of their inspiration, but I wanted them to feel like they would have belonged in ancient Rome, but not the corrupted version of it. I'll put it that way. I wanted them to be the more enlightened version. So they're kind of like my space elves because I wanted them to have like the Lord of the Rings elves vibes mixed with vampires in ancient Rome. And that was a really long, involved answer, but there you go. But I wanted them to have a magic system, and then they were threatened by that magic system. And that's kind of what causes things with Jade and the whole series that you'll find out more in book 3. There's a certain steampunk feel to the setting. Wondering if there are any books in particular that inspired you, or do you have some recommendations for books of a steampunk vibe? I meant to grab it and I forgot to grab it. But there is a book I have not read the entire thing. I've only started reading it. It is called Dark of the West by Joanna Hathaway. I might be wrong with the last name, but it is a very similar world and some similar characters too. I was kind of surprised how similar it was. When I was querying it, I heard that one was kind of like a steampunk element with some kind of pilots, World War I, enemies to romance vibes. So I used that as a comparison title, even though I hadn't read it, which, whatever. But I started reading it and I really, really like it. So the main character is a lot like Case. The male main character is a lot like Case. He's a pilot and he has daddy issues, has 2 older brothers who are involved in things. I believe he even has a sister. I might be wrong about that, but he's been through some traumatic things. The female main character isn't a lot like Hallie, but she has maybe some similarities there. But it's a World War I kind of vintage-ish world with some steampunk elements. So I recommend that one. Again, I haven't finished it, so I can't speak for like Spice or anything like that. I don't know if that's in there. You can probably Google that or Goodreads that to see, but that one is one that's really similar. And like I mentioned earlier, Divine Rivals has a very similar world vibe and the aesthetic of my book. So I would recommend those. I actually don't read a lot of steampunk. I like more character focused things. And so I found that a lot of steampunks I've tried to read focus on like the technology and the world building, which is fine. That's just not my vibe. I like characters and plot a lot better. That's what I'm particularly drawn to. And so I don't read a lot of steampunk, which was hard for me to like market this book as steampunk because I was like, I don't read a lot of steampunk, but I like the elements of steampunk. I just want more character driven. So if you have any like character driven steampunks you wouldn't recommend, or cyberpunks, I'm actually interested in some cyberpunk stuff, let me know. I'm not able to find any, and that makes me sad because I would love to read that type of thing. I am reading Brandon Sanderson's second Mistborn series, which is more steampunk-esque, and I love it because I love Brandon Sanderson, but I haven't finished it yet. I think that's the only one, yeah, that I can think of off the top of my head. But I was thinking of I love Regency romance. I wanted to kind of bring the element in. That's kind of what helped bring that steampunk vibe in because I love Regency. I love Pride and Prejudice. And so that brought the steampunk kind of element to my futuristic Victorian setting there. So that was probably the inspiration for that in particular. And I really liked that I can make it not feel like wizard magic, which I love, but I really wanted something different. Let's see here. If you could put yourself in their world, what role do you think you'd play? I'd probably be the person who was killed, like page 2. There's no one killed page 2, but like if there was, that would be me. I probably would be like an author or a teacher. I would be me just in their world. I probably wouldn't be, I'd probably live in the lower city, or I actually hate the city, so I would not live in the city. I would live somewhere, I would probably live in the same village as Cornhead, if you know who that is in book 2. So I would probably live there, and I would probably read books all day or write books or something. And I would stay away from the drama because I do not like being in the city. I avoid the city at all costs. Too much traffic, too much traffic. Next one is, you mentioned in the live stream that Tev Rubica has a rich history. Are you diving deeper into the history in book 3, or is it all just locked away in world building for now? Yes and no. So I do have a little more of Tev Rubica in a sense, not really, but like in book 3, you get a little more world building there, but not a whole lot because I want to explore it in a different series within the same world. I have like 3 or 4 ideas about what to set in Tev Rubica. And so I want to do that. Petra's dad is actually from Tev Rubica. He came to Jade during the Civil War to kind of avoid that. He's one of the refugees, or at the beginning of it. And so he was able to make a name for himself in Jade before everything got flooded in. But there is more there, and you get slightly more hints of it at book 3, but nothing too deep because I want to explore that in a different series. But I'm really excited to write that at some point because that would be super fun for reasons. Are there any plans you had for the story that changed as you wrote the series? This is not a cop-out answer, but pretty much everything. I am very much a fly by the seat of my pants writer, or a discovery writer, called ourselves pantsers. I do like to have a vague plan. So I actually found this. I was cleaning today. And I found, I'm not going to show everything here, but there's a paper right here that has my Hallie plotline for book 3. And I was reading it, and like the essence of the story is there. This is a very early kind of brainstorm of it, but pretty much everything has changed. Like it's like the very like, hey, this element was here, and this element was here, and this element was here, and those elements are still there. But how they get there, what the element actually is, completely changed. And that happens for pretty much every book. Book 2 was the only one I semi-plotted in the beginning, and I stayed pretty true to that. I did plot book 3, pretty much nothing stayed the same. So I actually surprised myself with the ending of book 3 because I had 3 or 4 different ways I wanted to end it, and how I got there was completely different, and it surprised me while I was writing it. So love that, and that's been one of my early readers' best reactions to things. So that was really fun to see people react to the plot twist I didn't even know was coming, which is why I love discovery writing. It does tend to make me need to revise more, which is unfortunate, but here we are. How have you refined your descriptions? You make such a vivid world, and what was your process for learning to describe what you want the reader to see? Thank you so much. That means a lot because I'm really bad at description. I repeat descriptions all the time, and I probably shouldn't tell you that because you're going to go and read and you're like, oh my word, Allie, you've used that 6 times. Yes, but that's why I have line editors. I also have I have 2 wonderful critique partners. One of them in particular is really good at description. And so I think there's like 2 scenes in particular in book 2. She read a very, very early version of it. And then when I was about to publish it, I was like, hey, this scene, I cannot get the descriptions right. I'm just hitting my head against the wall. Can I give it to you and you put in descriptions for me, and then I'll refine it? And that's what she did for me. So I'll ask her a lot of times to do that because she is very, very good at it. I also read a lot. And so reading a lot, and I also have notes in my phone and like notebooks randomly of different phrases and different ways I hear things are described, and I write them down to sometimes use in my stories. Because sometimes people will say something else like, oh, that's brilliant. There's a lot of Pinterest to kind of help describe things, but most of it comes there with the help of other people through editing and just like thinking of different ways to say it. And a lot of wordhippo.com. If you have not discovered wordhippo.com, please do so. It's great because it will give you lots of different words instead of using the thesaurus.com. I highly recommend. Did Hallie change her accent when she came to the city? I noticed the mountain folks have more of an Appalachian accent. Yes. So I think this was an audiobook listener. Yes. I wanted the people in the mountain area of Jade to have more of an Appalachian accent. I did not grow up in Appalachia, but I grew up in the South, and so kind of near Appalachia, in and out, and I visited multiple times. And so I love the history of the Appalachian Mountains, and I love the folk tales and stuff like that. So I really wanted to bring that into the story somehow, because Jade is a conglomeration of these peoples from First Earth. And so I wanted to have so many different accents and different things that kind of made the world feel really real. And so Hallie did change her accent, and I kind of addressed that in book 3 a little bit. And so I did a little bit, not much. And then my line editor was like, it'd be really funny if Hallie gets so mad in this book, her accent comes out and then Case says something. So I was able to actually put something like that in there with this last read through. So I was really excited about that because that was a really good idea. So look forward to that, because she did have an accent, but she had to practice to get rid of it, because that was part of her arc, is she isn't sure of who she is. And so changing herself to fit what she thinks would help her in the city and fit in, even though she denies that she would do that, that is kind of her arc throughout the whole series. So I thought that was a really fun little addition there. Did you know from the start that this one, I was actually a spoiler in the Discord chat? They put in spoiler tags or whatever, but I took a certain thing out of here. Did you know that blank, 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 we're going to die? Yes, I always knew the characters who die were going to die, even in book 3. Those are probably the only things that don't change, which is sad. The way things happen at the end changes. I always have a different, I think in all 3 books I had a different ending, and then when I was actually writing it, it changed. But the character that this particular question is referencing, yes, I always knew that person was going to die, as well as the other ones who dies. So I'm not too that's kind of a spoiler, I guess, for book 1, but I do on the outset say it's Rogue One. And Rogue One, everyone dies. I had another student actually spoil that book for me, or that movie for me, but you know, that's why I don't teach middle school anymore. If one of you are watching, my little, well, you're old students now, but you spoil endings for movies for me. Hannah over on Instagram says, very excited for that Seymour accent comes back. I was just like, why didn't I think of this earlier? That's genius. And so that's why you have people read your stuff, because they come up with really awesome things to help your book sound better. So I'm excited about it too. I'm so excited I made it work as well, because fixing it in and making it fit with the scene is just, sometimes it's hard, but I was able to do it. I love your cover art so much. What was your process for character design and finding an illustrator? I will start with this. So this is, you can't see my mouse. I'm sitting here like using my mouse to show you here. So the Vin from Mistborn art is the art I found specifically from Deandra. Deandra Cicluna is my cover artist, or was my cover artist for the series. She was brilliant, to put it mildly. I found her on ArtStation because I was searching fantasy art and Cosmere art specifically. So I put it on here, this slide here. So like I went on ArtStation because I talked to my cousin, who is a board game designer and toy designer. And so he works with a lot of artists. And I was like, hey, how do you find some artists to do your stuff? And he was like, go on like ArtStation or DeviantArt, different things where artists posts, and try to find an art style you like. And then ArtStation in particular, I'm not sure if the other ones, has contact information, because these people are kind of looking for hire a lot of times, not all the times. It's like an online portfolio. And so I found Deandra there. And I messaged her and said, like, hey, you know, what's your rate? What's your availability? You know, would this be a project you're interested in? I messaged more than just her. I messaged a couple people who'd had some really good Cosmere art. Yeah, it worked out really well for me. And she'd done, I think, a children's book before and illustrated that one. So she had some experience in that. And she was a great person to work with. I decided just to do the cover art because I didn't want to have to pay for the full wrap, because that was going to be really expensive. I did want to pay for good cover art, but I didn't want to, you know, put me really far into debt. So I just did the cover art for each of my books, and I actually put the typography on myself, and I did the full wraps for it. So, I mean, it's not much. It's just basically the type on both the spine and the back and the flaps of the hardcover there, but in like the title and stuff. But I have a little bit of Photoshop experience. I'm not great, so I was able to just put my titles on there. So wasn't too hard, but I knew how to use Photoshop. So that's what I did there. I signed a contract. I just want to say, like, it's really important to get a contract. It protects you, protects them. It's just great. Just make sure you sign a contract if you do go through somewhere like ArtStation or something. It just helps. It's very helpful. I then made Pinterest boards with inspiration. So I had like Hallie and Case inspiration. I had like color palette inspiration, book cover inspiration, and mood. I had like a mood section, and I had like ideas for reference photos. I'm not an artist, so I didn't really know what she might have needed. So I just kind of put everything on there. I don't know if it actually helped, but I hope it did. I intended to help is my point. And then I also had a detailed Word document with like, these were my characters. I had like not only what they looked like, but like their personalities, kind of what's going on in their head, stuff like that. I also put little bits and pieces of who they were, just how they would react to things, like their history and stuff, which just kind of goes into the personality traits. And then I had pose ideas and background ideas. I had several different background ideas for book one's cover. One of them was this, the steampunk-esque-ish Victorian city you see on the book one cover. The second one was a mountain range in the background. They're on a hill, which led more to a classic fantasy feel because it was more zoomed out. And then I think there was two more. One of them was the gate, which I ended up using for book three. So I told her, I was like, hey, I love the gate background. It looks great, but I think that's going to be my book three cover. So I pulled that back, held that one, went with the city one because it just felt awesome. And I wanted that warm brown, yellow tones to kind of make it feel like a steampunk. I used the title to signal that it was fantasy, which is why it's a blank, because that is a very recognizable fantasy title template. But yeah, she provided sketches, then she provided color sketches, and then there was a final approval process, and she was just wonderful to work with. So every artist I've worked with has been really, really awesome. And I pretty much follow this for all the artists I've worked with. One of them, you can't really see it here, is one of my arts for book three. I used somebody else for that art as a promo art type thing, and she was wonderful to work with too. I found her in ArtStation looking for Cosmere art. So Brandon Sanderson art is great, and they all do this wonderfully. Hannah says the city and colors make the cover look amazing. Thank you. I agree. I mean, I'm biased, but thank you. I really like it because I like the warm tones. Book two has a slightly cooler tones, but it still has the same vibe-ish to it. So they kind of match. They're kind of like not muted, but they match, but they are cooler. I still like them too. And I love book three's cover as well. Were there any moments you didn't plan on? Yeah, that was all of them. Sorry. Plan on adding in any of the books, decided to spontaneously all of the time. So there is a specific, the accent thing I just mentioned is something I spontaneously kind of spontaneously added. There's a couple things in book three I've added. Book two, I mean, every book I've done, I've had random things I spontaneously add because I am a discovery writer. There is something, I'm trying to think of something in book two that I cut. There's a certain Case and Hallie scene that I absolutely love. In book two, it is a dance scene. And that one I wrote and then I cut it. And then I finished writing the book. And I realized I needed to help with one of the plot threads. I needed to add that back. So I went and I added that back. The middle of book two was very, very different from what you see today. It was, I really slog in the middle. And I had to go fix that. So the dance scene helped with that. And then there is a Hallie moment in Nar that she does some things that was added pretty late in the series. And it's one of my favorite parts of the book. So all good things. Oh yeah, Hannah always loves the promo art right here. See, I'm so glad you love this, Hannah. I also love it too. Personally, do you have alternate versions of cities in your mind, or are they written down somewhere? Yes and no. I mean, I have old drafts of it, and there was a different version of the ending I was going to do. I don't remember exactly what that version was of the endings of cities because it's been a very long time since I finished cities, but there was about 3 or 4 alternate endings for book 3. And I had to like really work to figure out how I can make the ending work. And I really like what I have, but it was a process. So I have alternate endings to book 3. And there's one I almost chose, but I decided not to for very specific reasons. But I was able to kind of do the ending. I'll just leave it like that. Did anybody inspire Hallie's character? Not really. I didn't really have any inspirations for her in Case. They kind of just came to me. There is a Pinterest. I keep forgetting to bring up this Pinterest pin. I don't know if I can do that. while I'm live here. I probably could. I'm just not technologically advanced to do it. There's a Pinterest pin that has a Case and Hallie, not really, but like it was them. When I saw that picture, like the dynamic between the characters, because they're kind of like fighting. It's a man and woman. They're fighting, like a verbal fight, and you can tell it's like an enemies to lovers vibe to it. And I was like, okay, that's the vibe I want to go toward with these characters. But the book started out as a space opera essentially, and so it was Hallie, the character who was Hallie, was on the run, and because she broke the law and because she got caught though, she was like, hey, you can either do this mission for us or you can, go to jail and rot in jail essentially. And so she chose to go on the mission, and the pilot of the mission was the Case character. And so there was a whole crew. At some point there's Case, Ebba, Ben, Zeke, and Hallie. So there's 5 of them. That's all of them, right? Math is hard. But there was at least 1 or 2 more people in the original drafts. There was a Professor Christie, not his exact character, but the Professor Christie-like character was going to go on it. And I believe there was 1 other. I think Ben was actually just a pilot in the very first rendition of it. And then I think someone else was the watch lead agent. So I think I had 2 more, but they were just they were superfluous characters. So I was like, I can cut them and cut it down to 5 because I just needed Ben could be the extra pilot and the watch lead agent. You have the pilot, Case, the main pilot. Then you had Zeke, he's a soldier of the military's representation, but he's also a medic. Then had Hallie, who was the scholar, who knew where they're going and how to communicate with the people. He had Ebba, who could, fix the ship. So that's all I needed. Alyssa says, just want to say I love your work. You are my favorite author. Thank you so much. And Han. Oh, you guys are making me so happy. Alyssa, if I'm not mistaken, I am the reason you are getting married to your fiance. And that's all I'm going to say. I think you're the right Alyssa, if I remember correctly. If you are, let me know. Because it warms my heart so much that that's the case, if it is you. Let's see, what does it say? Yeah, so Hallie as a character wasn't really inspired by anybody. Ken just came to me, I guess, is the whole point. But I recently watched The Mummy as of last year. I had not watched The Mummy before writing this book. So I wrote the book in 2019, published it in 2021, and I watched The Mummy in 2024. And I was like, holy crap, that is Hallie. And I was like, that's fantastic. I did not realize that. And Case is definitely Rick. And I was just like, my mind was blown because I did not know that. And there was Sullivan and Sanderson as an auto-buy author. That just means the world to me because they're my favorite authors. 100%. Did the movie Atlantis give you inspiration? Yes, I always forget to use Atlantis. I didn't realize it until people in the comments or my reviews started saying that Atlantis was a good comp, and I was like, oh my stars, you're right, because in my head I'm thinking of Journey to the Center of the Earth. That's what I had in my head when I was writing it. It's a really old movie. I think they've redone it in recent years, but there was a 50s, 60s movie called Journey to the Center of the Earth, and that's kind of what I was thinking when I was originally drafting it, as well as The Odyssey and Pride and Prejudice. But Atlantis is a really good comp. So I use it to kind of compare my book now. Do you think you would want to explore more of your universe, like new characters, maybe more of an ancient period? Yes. I have so many ideas. So many ideas. I would love to continue writing in this world. I got to figure out the time to do it because I have so many ideas for it. If you could add another point of view to cities, who would it be and why? I have one particular, Skibbs, get their perspective. I'm really glad that you really liked Skibbs, or you would like Skibbs' perspective because he has an interesting perspective in book 1. I'm going to pause there. I don't know who I would add. I would probably add Les, Case's mom, or Clara, because Clara's in book 2. I loved her point of view in book 2. It was really easy to write, and I really liked it, but she didn't have a whole lot to add in book 1, where book 2, she adds a lot more to Joe's point of view and deepens it. So I guess I would add one of those, Les or Clara, to book 1. I wouldn't add Skibbs for a very specific reason, but I won't say any more here. I really like that Case is the youngest of the brothers, but what made you decide to make Hallie a twin? That's a fun answer because I always have wanted to be a twin, and that's why Hallie is a twin. One of the very first books I remember loving as a kid was I don't remember what it's called, but it's about two identical twins who switch places for the day. And I thought that was the coolest thing ever. I remember getting it from the Scholastic Book Fair in like third grade and rereading it so much, it fell apart. And so ever since then, and I loved Mary-Kate and Ashley. I was obsessed as a kid. And so I was like, I would love to be a twin. And so that's why Hallie is a twin, because I've always wanted to be a twin. So I get to live vicariously through Hallie a little bit. But what's funny is my husband is a twin. So I don't know what that says, but like maybe it's I vicariously lived through my husband. I don't know, but his twin is not identical. They are very much fraternal twins. But he laughs and gets he's like, I always had to share my birthday. I had to share a car. I had to share everything with them. So apparently being a twin isn't as fun as it sounds, but I think it'd be awesome. So Hallie got to be one. For a little bit, at least. I love that you made Hallie a redhead. I guess you're redhead because you're a bit biased. What inspired you to give her red hair, and does that play a role in her temper? No, it does not play a role in her temper. That wasn't my intention. She used to have dark hair like me for the longest time. I can't remember when I switched over to red hair. I'm trying to remember when that was, what draft it was in. I switched her to have red hair because too many people had brown hair. So I needed a redhead. And that's a horror, like that doesn't make any sense. Like that's not a really good reason, I feel like, but that's why she has red hair, is because no one else had red hair. And I needed to have somebody with red hair because I feel like it just fit. But she did have really dark hair like me up until one of the drafts, probably one of the very last drafts, to be honest. Actually, I think my developmental editor read the book with when she had brown hair, because she also had bangs for a long time. I think that might have been changed like in line edits or something, possibly. I think. I'm gonna say that's right, but it's been a while. I don't remember exactly. The temper just kind of happened to work with her character, and then she ended up having red hair toward the end. So it all works out together. Have you read any books that blend fantasy and sci-fi in a similar way to Cities? No, I would say Dark at the West, like I mentioned earlier. Dark at the West is similar and kind of does that. Divine Rivals is a really good comp as well. I'm trying to think. I mean, it's kind of like be a cop out, but like Rogue One is fantastic, and I use it as a comp for my book. The entire Rogue One series, it starts with Catalyst, and it's from the perspective of Jyn Erso's dad and like what he did to kind of get involved with the Empire, and it is so stinking good. I love it. And then the Rogue One novelization is fantastic as well. So I would say Star Wars is a really good one, because even though it feels a lot more sci-fi, it's science fantasy for sure. So because you have the Force and you have fantastical elements to it. So I don't know if that's a cop out or not, but there aren't a lot that blend it the exact same way or close to mine, I feel like, which has been fun because like mine is unique, but it's also hard to be like, well, it's like this meets this and this, but it's not really Treasure Planet, but it's kind of treasure. It's hard to kind of pinpoint that. How did you come up with the character names, and were there any characters that inspired them? I think I mentioned this at one point, I think maybe last live, but I am really bad at coming up with character names personally. And so I use fantasynamegenerators.com. It is a lifesaver. And so a lot of times I will go there and find names and then tweak them. So for Cities of Smoke and Starlight, a lot of times I found a name and I made it more sci-fi feeling. So I specifically searched the Victorian names and I added a sci-fi vibe to it. The only one that didn't change is Case. Case's name has always been Case. Shackley came later. It was Case Calder at first because I liked the double cook. And the alliteration, I guess, is what I could have said. But Case Shackley just like fits so well. And I got the Shackley from Victorian names at fantasynamegenerators.com. So I should love to be sponsored by them or something. I'm just kidding, but they're great. Highly recommend it for any author because it has fantasy names, it has real world names, place. It's just a fantastic resource. Highly recommend it. What is your favorite scene or moment between Case, Hallie, and Cities? It is after the Stonemen attack and they're sitting around the fire, and it's that first moment they really start to be like, "Oh, you're not a bad person," and that was just so gratifying to write. I can still hear the song I listened to over and over in my head the entire time I was reading or writing that scene. It is, I think it's a Callum Scott song, You Are the Reason. That one is just like in my head. So that scene is probably my favorite scene moment in Cities between them. I did like writing the dragon scene, multiple dragon scenes, but yeah, that was probably, if I would have to choose, that's probably the one. I did like the Carmel scene as well. That one was really fun to write too. And I mean, any scene with Case and Hallie's been fun, but like those probably are the top ones. My favorite character, I don't really have a favorite character. I love Case. Case is really fun to write. Hallie is too, but there's something about Case where I can just be like, I can like say what I want to say, and because he's just an abrasive character and he doesn't really think about the consequences of his actions many times. And so it's been fun to explore that because you can't really do that in real life. Let's be serious. So like that's been really fun. So I loved writing Case. If I have to choose, writing Case has been the best. I don't have a favorite character though, because it is like my favorite child. I can't choose because I like all my characters for very different reasons. And there's this one character you get to meet in book 3 that I loved writing their point of view. And it was really fun. But they're not my favorite character. But like writing them was probably my favorite thing to write in the entire series. I'll put it that way. And this one I'm adding the chapter, he's the one I'm adding the chapter with. That is causing my book to be really big, or one of the many reasons my book is really big. I know asking an author who they're, I already read that one. Also, what are your thoughts on Ben? I'm going to say Raffo, to quote Brandon and Jordan, Robert Jordan, read and find out, because I'm not going to spoil anything. How long did it take to write the first book in the Gate Chronicle? That's, and then I would stop and I'd work on my other book when I got stuck in Cities. And then when I got stuck on my edits for the other book, I would come back to Cities and write that. So like I was going back and forth the entire time between like multiple different book series. I was also brainstorming a book, loved back to. I would love to return than what is typically a King Arthur retelling. It is basically Arthur didn't want to be king, and he also didn't want to be a warrior, and I want to go back to that story so badly. I don't know if I could sell it well, but because it's not really traditional King Arthur telling. So anyway, I was working on that one. I was working on a draft live. My internet just wigged out for a second. Okay, I have a little bit of a lag, but I think we're still good. If you can't hear me, let me know. I'm gonna keep going though. How long did it take you to land on Hallie and Case's names? A while. Hallie's name changed several times, and Case's name was always Case. Did any character start off completing in? Oh, did any character like I had a plan for them, and did it change? All of the character, it always changes. So I wish I could plan it out. Oh, okay, you're good there. Glad I'm back. Sorry if you missed something. I apologize. Internet. Again. Okay. Hold on. Okay, I know I will go out again in a second. I hope it's back on. I am so sorry. Okay, I think it's gonna stay. I'm almost done. So we're almost to the end here. Yes, all the characters basically changed pretty much all the time. Do you know where the characters end up? Yes, I knew where they're going to end before I was writing it, but that changed. That kind of answers kind of the same question there. So, okay, that is all the questions I had. I don't think I saw any other ones come in question-wise, just some like comments, which were awesome. Thank you guys for chatting with me today. But